and not too long ago. All right, we're just going to hop into the game immediately. We can talk about it a little later, because for now we are looking at the blue Protoss, who is spawning on the left top side of King Sejong Station. Give it up for SKT1 Classic.
And his opponent in the southeast, the Red Terran player, up 1-0 in this best of 5 from Team Acer. He is MMA. Well, hopefully everything can be resolved reasonably quickly. Not sure exactly what's happened here, but it's a good position to be in for MMA in a series like this, when Classic is kind of known for busting out crazy builds. He kind of stuck to his guns in the first map.
Yep, MMA looked rock solid in game number 1. Obviously, we hope that we can continue the action on game number 2 as quick as possible. As you guys saw, we were pretty much good to go. But it seems like we have a minor technical difficulty once more. Hopefully it will be resolved very quickly, though. We can talk a little bit about King Sejong Station, as I believe both players are still wearing their headset. Just a couple of weeks ago, MMA played a pretty interesting game on this map. He played against Sun. I believe it was just a ridiculous game where Sun was going for some proxy shenanigans as well. And MMA actually busted out crazy Hellion play. Do you think it's possible we'll see something like that, Nick?
The Hellion builds in Terran versus Protoss have kind of been popping up a reasonable. I actually see it a little bit more from players like Polt. I believe trying to follow his games in the qualifiers for IEM San Jose. I know he was able to take pretty big victories off of players like Puck, who compete at the top of the North American scene with these Hellion pushes. And it was also reasonably popular. Back in Pro League, we would see it every now and again. On this map, I'm not entirely sure. You have that fast drop path of the natural, of course, which is good for, you know, either the Hellion drops or the mine drops. Mine drops just seem to be a bit more popular, so that's MMA just kind of seems to like that.
It's great to see we still have a lot of very, very happy fans in the audience. It's great to see that you guys are still so excited to watch some StarCraft 2 action with us. We are, of course, as well, and we can't wait to just continue the action. And hopefully it will be smooth sailing from then, as we still have another semifinals to go after this. And that is proven to be one of the perhaps most epic matches of the entire year. Maybe one of the best matches we've ever seen in StarCraft 2. We don't know, but it has potential for it. I'm, of course, talking about Team Liquid Stasia going up against Live. Two guys that have been playing against each other in the past, but they are, Nate, incredibly good in this game that we call StarCraft 2.
Yeah, I mean any fan of any race that's here, you have a Terran alive, you got 2 Terrans, you have a Protoss alive, you have a Zerg alive. Like
David Kim was onto something, Nate.
Yeah, man, we have the potential. You could get your ZVP, your TVP, your TVZ. The only thing, like I guess you could get a TVT is the only mirror possible, but.
You know,
little something for everybody here.
We looked at his top 4 and all the races were represented, and David is like, I think Terran needs a Cyclone.
Well, I would, I guess I'm a little too biased to answer that question, to respond to that. I wouldn't mind a Cyclone when an Oracle comes into my base chasing my workers. My Marines are pretty slow at catching those.
Oh, Nate. Oh, don't you even go there, my friend. As we take a look at Classic, obviously he would just love to continue the action as quick as possible as well. I saw a few more bar crafts signed here in the audience. Of course, I want to give a big shout out to all the bar crafts that are currently going on around the world. Hopefully you guys are behaving well and having a great time watching some StarCraft 2. And of course, it's okay to have a drink or two.
Yeah.
If you're over 21.
Yes.
Or 18 in Europe.
I mean, there's...
Or 16.
It varies drastically across the world, but we have a very awesome international audience. We met people here from all over the world. I think there was actually some guys like really excited from Hawaii. I guess like now that I live on the West Coast, it's like, well, Hawaii, I guess it's not as far away, but.
You know, there's a reason why I've been giving Hawaii shout-outs throughout the entire year, Nate. I knew there would be one dedicated Hawaii fan that would travel all the way to BlizzCon just because I gave him the correct time zones for every single WCS America broadcast.
It's a very valuable thing. Time zones can be really tricky to figure out.
There we go. Hawaii loves esports.
Hawaii loves esports.
And Team Tasia.
I like this. If you coach me in SC2, I will show you how to open a shin. Well, Tasia will need that advice later on, perhaps. But we are back into the game, guys. And one thing I did want to mention, Roddy, as these players get their openings going, not a map that asks for builds like Command Center first, so we should see things turn up a little bit faster. MMA with this barracks into quick gas looks like he's going to go for a standard Reaper expand. Now, Classic, what have you seen him do on this map in this matchup? We're going to have Stargate again? Maybe, does he proxy Stargates on this map? Have you seen it?
I mean, he has done it in the past in different matchups. But the funny thing is, like we mentioned before, Classic has played a very, very surprising low amount of games against Terran in the last 4 or 5 months. Up to the round of 16 of BlizzCon, I think his last win against the Terran was in GSL Season 2. After that, he played against a few Terrans like TY and maybe it was Fantasy. I don't know, one of the other Pro League Terrans. He lost a couple of best of ones, but that's it. There is just not a whole lot of information out there. But of course, just a week ago, Classic played in the round of 16 of this WCS Grand Finals against Polt, and he had a cool build on this map, Nate. He went for that Twilight into that very quick 3 base, where he had like 3 bases at the 9-minute mark, and he was still offensive with some Blink Stalkers, trying to keep Polt at bay.
He forced Polt to build a couple of bunkers inside of his base. He had him a little bit on, you know, not on the ropes, but you keep a Terran worried enough to invest defensively, and then you don't have any way to punish that greedy third.
And then the worst thing was for Polt, when he finally wanted to move out, he picked up his units and Classic blinked forward and sniped one of the medevacs. And on that moment, you know, Classic was basically securing himself very, very quick access to 3 bases, and he was just having the time of his life. He was having a crazy amount of minerals to work with, a lot of gas to work with later on as well, and he was relentless. He actually looked extremely good on King Sejong Station a week ago.
Yeah, speaking of a lot of gas, MMA, as the Stargate boots up for Classic, has gone for a factory opening. And you asked me about this earlier, but the positioning of this factory could very easily just put out a few Marines and go for Hellions. You could go for a Widow Mine drop. Still, all the options are on the table for MMA in this map because, you know, there's a lot of ways the Oracle can go into your main, but, you know, same holds true for a medevac.
Yep, and you can only photon overcharge 1 base, Nate, and when you make an Oracle investment, of course, you know, that Stargate costs money, and the Oracle is quite expensive as well. And if the Oracle is on the other side of the map and he uses his energy, you don't have a whole lot at home. And I think that MMA is banking indeed on the fact that Classic may be playing with Oracles over here, and that's why he might go for a Hellion build if he decides to go with it. But if he does, Nate, I'm going to go excited because I know a lot of workers are going to die very early on.
Yeah, it will take some really good control from Classic to defend. Of course, at the same time, MMA doesn't have a lot of anti-air, but that Stargate offers a very fast route to tech that will allow him to deal with the medevacs once he gets some Phoenix out. So it's still...
You think he's going to
This is going to come down to the control, I feel, for both players.
You think this is one of these games where he's going to make a bunch of Phoenixes as well? I am not sure. It's possible, but I kind of feel that if he wants to go Phoenix Twilight, then it's a different type of build.
He would usually have his Forge starting instead of this Robotics Facility at this point. Wow, that's a really great read. You get to see the Oracle coming across. Hopefully noticed it in time to get preparations. His Marines are there. That's not quite 6, though. You need 6 Marines to actually handle an Oracle.
Yeah, we don't really have a whole lot of Marines. This Oracle should just get to the main base as quick as possible and try to work on an SCV or so. He's going to pick up the first worker kill off the game there.
Yeah, not a bad pickup at all. And this is putting the pressure on MMA because that medevac will finish, actually going straight for the Viking first, but you can't get the medevac because you have to worry about this. You're not allowed to be as aggressive as normal. And let's see what these Hellions are able to do because he has to dance these Marines around while simultaneously trying to be aggressive. He will barely escape with that Oracle.
All right, let's take a look at the natural of Classic as these Hellions are swinging in, and the Reaper, I believe, was the unit there that went down, but he did force out a photon overcharge immediately. So for now, yeah, this looks okay for Classic, but it's of course the next wave that is going to be the scary one, when there is a medevac in the mix as well, when there are a bunch of Marines and those Hellions are still alive, especially because he is indeed building the Phoenixes like you mentioned, Nate, but 1 or 2 Phoenixes is not going to make the difference. You really need 3 or 4.
Yeah, and he's continuing to pump them out, and we talked about this earlier. When you make this investment, you won't see those forges, you don't see crazy amounts of observers. He will get a forge, but this is going to cut down on his ability to get actual tech. So you really have to be careful with the choices that you make if you're Classic, since MMA is still trying to bring pressure on because he's gone for this really heavy gas opening.
Yep, Forge is halfway done, but this is going to be a very interesting moment. The Phoenix count is at 3 now, I believe, as Classic decides to use some of his resources to warp in that robotics bay. It's actually so important that Oracle is still alive as well, Nate, because that Oracle can really help in dealing with these Marines. That will make his life so much easier. But here we go. MMA is going to try to unload a couple of these Marines in the back of the main base of Classic. If he just kills that medevac like that, another photon overcharge goes down in the natural, but a lot of work is going down already, Nate, and the units are still out of position for Classic.
Yeah, those Hellions really distracting and causing Classic to spend his energy away from where the real threat was, and lots of probes dropping here for Classic. The Marines, yeah, he's going to be able to kill them, but MMA got a lot more than I think you typically expect to get with these types of plays. And when you're even in economy in Terran versus Protoss, Protoss can chrono boost their workers to build them faster, but if you're even, the mules that the Terran has will make them much more effective as well.
A little bit confused there why he activated Envision. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. He is able to pick up 1 FCVs. Of course, Phoenixes are very quick units, and as long as the Marines are not in high numbers and don't have stim, these Phoenixes can actually just fly into the base from every single angle and pick up an SCV or 2 here and there. So eventually, Classic should be able to do a little bit of economic damage as well, but that Viking is making it complicated. I still think he will get some work done with them, though. And while we actually take a look at the first-person view of Classic now, we see that he's going up to 3 bases immediately, Nate.
Yep, he's really saying that the late stim caused by opening up with that fast drop gives him enough time to get this third while simultaneously spreading out his observers, getting all the tech. We can just kind of see he's keeping his eyes on these Phoenix.
He's keeping his eyes everywhere, Nate. He's so fast. I can't follow.
Well, I mean, we see the first-person view, we're like, man, these guys actually are really, really disgustingly good.
Yep, he's going to fly in over here on a weird angle of this refinery, but we'll get a couple of these SUVs and hopefully we'll not lose a single Protoss, or excuse me, a single Phoenix in that process, as he did try to micro them a little bit there in the end. MMA has a dropship on the top side of this map, and this medevac is heading towards the Nexus. I'm not sure if there's enough DPS in that drop to cancel the Nexus, as the Nexus should have quite a bit of HP, but we'll see. I don't think a single medevac is going to be enough over here, but at least he will get the confirmation that it's there. But with the Phoenixes out on the map as well, I'm afraid he might actually end up losing this medevac, Nate, because against Phoenixes, there's no retreat.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the Phoenix, that that medevac boost only lasts so long. Now the Marines will come up, kill a probe, cancel a pylon, but you don't have enough damage output to take care of this third base before the Gateway army arrives with that Colossus.
Classic was really paranoid there, that there was like a double drop going on at the same time, you know, because often there's one medevac drop on the north side and then the big drop swings into your main and you lose all these workers. But Classic was actually anticipating something that wasn't happening, which is good news for MMA, because now he might actually be able to get out of there with a few Marines and that one medevac.
You don't want to lose those this early into the game. Those are the big threats that you want to keep. It has the same effect as the Oracle, as the Protoss player. You always keep the Protoss guessing where that medevac is. It's like, where did those 8 Marines go? And at the same time, we see here he's getting ready to push on the left side. He can try to work on the rocks. And these Phoenix are scouring the map.
The Marines have stim, by the way. If they stim over here, they may have been able to pick off a Phoenix, but that is not going to happen. They do still have control of that Zelnaga watchtower. As Classic also have an observer in the middle of the map. That's something he didn't have in the last game, and this is so important. PvT is 100,000 times easier if you have map vision. It just makes your life so much better as a Protoss player. So these observers, it's very important for Classic that they stick around and that they won't get picked off.
Yeah, this Phoenix Colossus style is so interesting. Phoenix build very, very fast. Takes 35 seconds when you chrono boost. It's even less so. It allows you to spend the same amount of resources per minute as basically building Thors non-stop. You're going to go and supply very quickly because you're also building Colossi. And this causes Classic to have this interesting art. You look at the supply, it's like Protoss is generally not ahead at this point in the game because you think Marines and Marauders build fast, but it's still a very large army for Classic.
Yeah, it is. It's just a lot of army. He's not very well upgraded yet, though. He does have extended thermal lens, and I believe that he's working on +2 armor. No, he's actually working on +1 attack, excuse me, as that one is about to finish up. But I do agree, it's a lot of Protoss units, and normally he's not up in supply in this phase in the game. There's a lot of energy on these Phoenixes as well. That's something that MMA has to be very, very cautious of, because if MMA loses a fight, well, these Phoenixes are going to swing in and are going to pick up every single unit that's trying to retreat.
I almost feel like he could have tried to just go for those 8, but now he sees him coming on the left side. He wants to have every unit prepared. Of course, the photon cannons to defend will also give him a little bit of time to react once forces move in. That brave probe running past some Widow Mines. And his scan for MMA is like, Can I attack this? No, but I at least want to keep you thinking about the possibility of me moving in.
Yep, and it's nice to take out those rocks because then you know, okay, at least I have a future access into it, and I don't always have to drop into the main base. I do like the passive playstyle now from MMA. I know some people think like, why isn't he trying to drop? But the moment you fly in with anything right now, it's guaranteed to die because the Phoenixes are too fast. Nothing will ever get away. So as a Terran player, if you take a fight against his army composition, well, you better be damn sure that you're actually going to win the fight as well. Otherwise, everything will die. There's just no retreat against his army.
You have to completely commit yourself to killing the Phoenix Colossus push if you want to win. Now, +2 attack is done for MMA, so he has a nice window where he will be able to kill these units pretty quick. And I actually love this position of the Widow Mine. You can try to use the Vikings. If you bait them over, that splash damage, man, it works on all Protoss units. There's a lot of work he can get done here if he can control the movement of Classic's Air Force.
Yeah, I would love to see the Viking number right now because I believe we're at a pretty solid number. We're at 13. That may sound impressive. That's like, hey, that's a lot of Vikings. But against 5 Colossus and also the 11 Phoenixes, I don't think that's enough, Nate. I really think that MMA needs close to 20 Vikings. I really think that's the number that he should be aiming for because he can ignore those Phoenixes. The Phoenixes are not a big issue during the potential fight, as a Widow Mine will pick off a Zealot. I think there's still the other Widow Mine as well that was tucked away, or maybe that's the same one.
And this revelation is so nice, just being able to keep tabs on the army. So, well, if you were to load into your medevacs, I'd be able to see. And I mean, we can tell that because his production has been so Viking focused, he actually doesn't have a crazy number of medevacs. 5 on the map in total. It's not really going to be enough to deal with a huge engagement if those Vikings don't kill all the Colossi.
I feel like MMA is playing with fire.
He gets all of the Phoenix with his Widow Mine. Well, that's, you know what? He baited Classic real hard. I think he baited us. I didn't quite see how he positioned those. That was... You can't ask for better than that, Ronnie.
No, that was sick. I was worried because MMA has such an impressive production tab right now. He has +3 attack about to finish up, +2 armor about to finish up. He has 3 ghosts on the way and cloak. And he could still get a few more Vikings. So I was really worried. I was like, wow, he's playing with fire. But he was actually still not trying to commit. And he knew the only thing that prevented him from like losing his army and starting a fight that he couldn't possibly win was the Widow Mines. Like Protoss doesn't want to fight against Widow Mines if there's no detection there.
Yeah.
So
I'm really interested to see where Classic goes with this now because he still has a very powerful ground army. This transition into Storm makes sense.
The boys are being pulled, Nate. And it's a lot of them.
Every SCV, he's bringing them to help tank up some damage. And with that low Phoenix count, he has the potential to kill all of these Colossi very quickly. There's no blink. The Stalkers are highly immobile.
There is no +2 attack either for these Colossus. A lot of the Phoenixes are gone. Here we go. A couple of EMPs raining down on this Protoss army.
Yeah, he's fighting at the bottom of this ramp. There's not a lot to hit the Vikings, but there's still a tremendous number of Colossi. MMA just needs to buy some time. He keeps pulling back chunks of his bio. If he can get up this ramp and actually kill the Colossi, the rest will be easy for him to finish off.
Yeah, but will he be able to, though? It seems like he has lost most of the SCVs. He has lost most of the Marines, and Classic will actually stabilize.
That's a big victory in this fight for Classic as he's already taking his 4th base. MMA does not seem to have enough to break him in this next Zealot Warp, and with charge, he's going to push him away.
Wow.
MMA, after picking off all those Phoenix, it looks so good, but still fighting up a ramp like that, a choke point like that when there's Archons in the mix, you have to be understanding the risks that that are associated with this kind of play.
Just look on the right side of the screen now, Nate. Storm is ready, Blink is going to be ready, and +2 attack is going to be ready. I feel that everything looked great there for MMA. Of course, like up the ramp is a little bit awkward, but I still felt he was so far ahead that normally that he would be okay with that. I just think the biggest problem was the Viking number was not where it should have been. You saw there were 4 Colossus left, and a couple of them were so low on HP, and we look at a completely different game if he kills 2 Colossus a little bit quicker. But meanwhile, a couple of these Marauders are going to try to work on this Nexus, will bait out a Storm. MMA has lost so many workers.
Yeah, MMA, you pull those SCVs in as that 4th base is building in a direction that you weren't attacking, and this big drop is kind of a desperation play. At the same time, the War Prism heading into his base will further complicate things as so much of his army supply is out on the map.
Yep, this is going to be very frustrating, especially because he's so low on SCVs already. So if you would end up losing a bunch of them, that would just be the worst thing that could potentially happen to MMA. Even just losing a few Marauders kind of hurts right now. Dropping is not really an option anymore, and I feel this is a phase in the game, Nate. This is where Classic is going to start excelling. He's going to have the upgrades that he's looking for. He's on 4 bases. He's going to have a couple of defensive cannons, a couple of defensive High Templars. It's very hard to drop this guy. This is going to be extremely difficult now for MMA. He really had to win the game when he pulled the boys, but he didn't.
Yeah, it's people don't call it an all-in for nothing. He has a very large hill to climb if he wants to get back into this game, and oftentimes you'd say the Terran player, you know, you can have a really rough time versus a 3-base Protoss when you're on 4. When the Protoss is on 4 and you're having a tough time getting your own, you know you're in a really difficult position as Terran. So this base, it's not even a planetary fortress. So yeah, the extra mule is going to help a lot with the economy, but if you get attacked before you max out, well, you don't really have a lot of tools available to help defend.
Okay, the only, I think, mistake that Classic could make is if he wants to go a little bit too fancy. If he wants to win this game with Warp Prism and Harass and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that, oh, okay, that's a nice little pickup there for MMA. That's a pretty expensive unit to lose, the good old High Templar. But if Classic just sits back and somehow gives MMA the time to max out, then he can definitely still end up losing this game. Even though he's going to have a way bigger bank, he's going to probably have a... more resources, or at least access to more resources as well. One of the things that he won't have is a bigger army, because if MMA maxes out, he has like 20 workers less than Classic, so MMA's army is going to be a lot more impressive.
Yeah, I really wasn't sure about the Templar positioning in this game. I'm still not sure for Classic. He's leaving a lot of them at all of his bases, which normally makes sense. MMA, though, is building ghosts. He's not playing quite like Pult. I really feel like worrying about a 6-7 medevac Doom drop that you need to have Templar at every base for isn't the focus of MMA's play style. And Classic, as MMA approaches max, and he's actually managed to climb back up in worker count, he's taken that 4th. Suddenly, if you don't have a lot of those Templar with your army and you try to attack a Terran up a ramp, I mean, you're going to see him fail as miserably as MMA did earlier on.
He still has way more High Templars than MMA has ghosts, though. But I do completely agree with you, Nate. The only good thing about this is that if Classic will lose a fight, then he doesn't necessarily lose the game because he has so many defensive High Templars to fall back on. Also because he's backing them up with cannons, and there is nothing harder for a Terran than to break into cannons and High Templars at the same time. It's just frustrating to deal with that stuff. But yeah, I think Classic made a mistake. He was pretty far ahead. I think he could have just started being aggressive, tried to deny a 4th base, and he tried to do it a little bit too fancy. He's dropping a couple of Zealots. He is moving forward, though, with his main army in the middle of the map.
Yeah, he's trying to catch this army out of position. Not going to happen. Those Vikings actually came back from a great angle, too, to hit those Colossi being on the right side of the army. But you make a great point. These Templar back home, and with this huge line of cannons, if you counterattack, you can't just win a fight. You have to dominate a fight to have enough to break those defenses.
Yep, +3 armor is about to finish up. At least MMA is completely back into this game, though, Nate. He has 58 workers, and that's really cool because he was all the way down to 34. As Classic is just adding in a Dark Shrine as well. He's running out his stack. But I think for MMA right now, this is kind of like, well, I kind of thought I was dead already in this game, so now at least I have something to work with. Good blink there, though, by Classic. Picks off one of these medefacts immediately.
A couple units trying to move forward up this ramp to the 4th base. Storms are ready to push him back. A couple of these Templar being a bit adventurous. Of course, feedbacks on these high-energy ghosts will kill them instantly, but you don't want to get sniped.
Feedbacks are a beautiful thing, Nate, if you play Protoss. It's one of the most satisfying F-clicks you'll ever make.
Yeah, well, there's quite a bit of that happens, but the thing is, of course, the ghost energy will cause them to die in that one shot, but snipe, even though it takes 2, it has longer range. You really need to be careful with the position. It's all about the positioning of these armies now, and this Warp Prism is doing its best to draw them out. I actually love that, the scan and EMP on the DT to make sure that it wouldn't be able to get in, but that's where that Dark Shrine becomes so useful.
Isn't 2 negatives a plus, Nate? I think if you reveal Dark Templar twice, it should be invisible again.
No thanks. Storms are going to come take a nice little chunk out of this army, but he's really moving him around a lot. And this army is quite clumped up. The EMPs are hitting this very nicely.
There must be an observer, right? Yeah, okay. He's chasing down the ghosts right now, so he's going to see them. There are a lot of Vikings in the mix, so the Vikings are going to try to deal with these Colossus, but a good storm there by Classic and a fantastic blink. Oh my God!
The flanking storms are really sealing the deal here for Classic. So many Marines and Marauders dying. He's still going to kill all the Templar. He did pick off all of the Colossi. They both traded out all of their important expensive units.
Yeah, he lost a lot of High Templars there. Of course, those storms were great, at least the first few. After that was small overkill. But MMA is actually still even in supply, which surprises me because it felt that fight was going a lot worse for him. Of course, Classic is still in a phenomenal position. He has money in the bank. He is still able to harass as well. But losing all these Colossus and losing your High Templars at the same time, that has to be a little bit scary.
Yeah, this War Prism harass has been pretty good so far. Actually, this command center very important for MMA to hold on to, as you will need a planetary fortress. You do not want to float out one of your exposed orbitals to that left side base. And as the Stalkers get close, of course, you don't want to overcommit yourself and lose them to those forces that the Marauders are coming to chase.
Oh, he's a little bit too late with the replay there. Ooh, Classic almost misclicked the Stalkers as well after he made a defensive blink. He could have lost a lot of them.
And nice play by Classic, though, to grab that base, because at the same time, he's taking the left side base. He has that right side base now. He's got money in the bank. He's going to start to max out very soon.
This looks like an AI base, man. It's like a single pylon with 4 cannons and a bunch of random High Templars. It's like, which mission is this of the campaign? It's like, well, the impossible
This
one.
is the mission where they show you the High Templar. They're like, yeah, you only build these guys. Just defend with cannons. You got this.
Exactly, and then the army runs up the ramp. You're like, ah!
Then you get the campaign upgrade for like 5,000 damage storm.
In a big area once. Still though, MMA trying to hang in there. He did once more lose a bunch of SCVs, fell all the way back to 48. But he's still mining, and he still has 7 Vikings in his army. He still has 5 Ghosts. Classic has 13 High Templars right now spread across the map. You know, in the past I've often watched these games, and in a late game I was like, I wish this Protoss had a few more High Templars. I definitely can't say that about Classic.
Yeah, he's had a steady 13. Actually now adding in a couple more, he's up to 15 High Templar on the map.
Make it rain.
Yeah, you know, it's like, yeah, High Templar are really strong, but you need to perfectly use all those storms. In MMA, in as many places as he's been, it's very difficult to directly engage him, because the defensive advantage of having Ghosts will make it very hard to actually push into anywhere. You kind of need MMA to attack into you.
Yeah, well, we saw that game between Sun and Jakji, where the Protoss was actually quite okay with just being very comfortable for the longest amount of time, as it is very difficult for a Terran to deal with this. Somehow this big army in the north side of the map actually went completely undetected. So a couple of these pros might get picked off, a High Templar might get picked off, and the Nexus will fall as well. But at the same time, Classic is also harassing in the main base.
Yeah, those Blink Stalkers are doing a great job of chasing the storms. As well, using that Warp Prism speed, but he will escape with some forces. 17 SCVs do die to the Zealot counter harass.
Great play by both players there.
Yeah, ooh, playing with fire. Classic, though, he is very close to maxing. He has a significant number of resources banked up. His economy has just been dominating MMA's pretty much ever since MMA sent all of his workers to attack.
Yep, MMA unloaded those units once more on the high ground, by the way, threw down his cannon. As soon as his army moves out, he's going to try to swing in one more time. Again, he can pick off a High Templar or two and maybe a Nexus, but these War Prisms are definitely a pain in the existence of MMA, as he doesn't really have a whole lot of forces right now in his main base, I believe.
The one nice thing for MMA is that Classic
is maxed out.
Classic was maxed out. I think he actually just killed one of his own units just to warp in this Dark Templar.
Well, Zeratul will go on a mission. My life for Iron, Nate. I've heard that many times this weekend.
Well, it's so annoying for MMA to have to deal with those plays, Roddy. It pulls the attention of the Terran all the way back home, and when a Terran is maxed out, there's no recall. You have to leave supply in your base to defend.
A couple of EMPs could do a lot of damage there. Storm still does go down, but the 2 Colossus do take a lot of damage. It's just so frustrating for MMA. There are so many cannons everywhere that even if he lands a good EMP or 2, that doesn't mean that he can just go for it, because there are High Templars hidden everywhere.
Yeah, and he's done a good job of sniping observers in the early mid-phase of this game as well, but with the cannons, you have the detection, so the Ghosts don't get to run up for free and get snipes or, just kill the army. But he's picking off a good number of Colossi here and there. However, the further up he moves, this army position looks really terrible, actually, from Classic.
Yeah, but he still has so many storms that you could say that maybe he's going to be able to get away with it. But
the EMPs are hitting all of the Templar. He gets in with a few storms. Zealots coming in from both sides, but this is not enough yet for Classic.
There's still a Colossus on the north side of this battle, though, and there are more storms raining down. And like I said, these cannons are so frustrating to deal with, but oh my god, it's so many cannons. This guy truly loves
get the
cannons.
Colossus. Viking moves over. This is like the last Big Daddy unit. There's the storms on the left side, and he still has a couple of these units alive.
He's a couple, Nate. He has storms 4 days. MMA took a good fight in the start.